Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. U.S. to spend US $400 million to relocate embassy in Port of Spain. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 10th April 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. The United States government is spending more than US $400 million to plan, design, and build the new US Embassy, which is to be located at a property in Maraval, formerly known as the Country Club. The announcement was made by U.S. Ambassador Candice Bond, who says that while it will take a few years once the new embassy is completed, it will be further evidence that the U.S. is Trinidad and Tobago's best partner and friend in the world. Joel Brown of TV6 News reports.
Recently appointed United States Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, Candice Bond, issued a statement and video to announce the latest acquisition by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Overseas Buildings Operations in the Twin Island Republic.
I have just signed the agreement to acquire the property at 137 Long Circular Road in Maraval as the new U.S. Embassy site in Port of Spain.
Also appearing in the video is Port of Spain Mayor Joel Martinez, who can be seen with Ambassador Bond touring the property, which is better known as the Country Club.
The U.S. government's commitment to the construction of a new embassy is a powerful indicator of the long-standing, robust relationship between the people and government of the United States of America and the people and government of Trinidad and Tobago. That's you.
The U.S. Embassy is presently located on Marley Street at Queen's Park West in Port of Spain. The site the U.S. Embassy will be relocating to in Maraval is obliquely opposite the Embassy of the People's Republic of China.
The U.S. government will invest more than $400 million to plan, build, and design the new U.S. Embassy. In addition to providing scores of jobs during the new embassy's construction, the project will showcase state-of-the-art and eco-friendly designs and materials. It will also allow the U.S. Embassy to better serve our constituents, improve the experience for visa applicants, and provide new and improved facilities and services for those conducting business with the U.S. government.
The U.S. Embassy also issued a statement with a photograph stating that Ambassador Bond signed the deed of sale on Wednesday morning for the 11-acre property, along with Joseph E. Fernandez, a representative of the seller of the property, and with Kristen Martinelli, realty specialist for the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Overseas Buildings Operations.
While it will take a few years before we relocate to the new site, we are really looking forward to this new chapter and our new home. It is solid, tangible evidence of the robust relationship between our two great countries, and yet further evidence that the United States of America is Trinidad and Tobago's best partner and friend in the world. It will be a permanent symbol of our unbreakable bond.
Joel Brown, TV6 News.
In the meantime, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amory Brown, sees Trinidad and Tobago's candidacy for the President of the United Nations General Assembly as a prestigious opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago. Details in this TTT News item.
During a media briefing on Thursday, Dr. Brown said the presidency of the General Assembly has only been held on 2 occasions by CARICOM member states. Mahalia Joseph Wharton has more.
Trinidad and Tobago's candidate identified for the position of president for the UN General Assembly is Ambassador Dennis Francis. Mr. Francis is the ambassador for this country to the United Nations, New York, United States of America.
The President of the General Assembly of the UN is ranked the highest in the order of hierarchy within the UN system. So this is not a light undertaking. This is a major undertaking, and it should be a point of pride for every citizen of our nation. It really should not be a forum for partisan bickering and squabbling and one-upmanship.
The minister responded to a release issued by Member of Parliament for Naparima Rodney Charles, which called on the government not to take credit for the work done by the People's Partnership Government in 2013, which he claimed assured this country the presidency of the Assembly. Minister Brown said it was a very unfortunate decision.
Such was, as was evidenced by a very unfortunate media release by a particular UNC individual, very unfortunate decision to take what is a national issue, a priority of the foreign policy of the sovereign state of Trinidad and Tobago, and to try to convert the discourse into CAMLA and UNC and PP and PNM. Those terms have not been associated with the conduct of this campaign by this ministry, nor by our permanent mission at the United Nations.
He said government believes that this is Trinidad and Tobago's time for its voice to be heard as a small island developing state.
And our voice at such a level is not just critical, but will also be beneficial to the affairs of the General Assembly and the globe at this time.
Dr. Brown added that they have put forward the best possible candidate for the post. Mahalia Joseph Wharton, TDT News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
St. Kitts and Nevis has further reinforced its commitment to Taiwan with the adoption of a resolution in the National Assembly on Tuesday last, endorsing the bid for the Republic of China and Taiwan to participate internationally in various organizations. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
This resolution was moved by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew, and seconded by Leader of the Opposition, Mark Brantley. The resolution acknowledges the friendly diplomatic ties between St. Kitts and Nevis and Taiwan, Taiwan's contribution to public health on St. Kitts and Nevis, its efforts to contribute into renewable energy and the objective of net zero emissions by 2050, and its contribution in combating transnational crime. The resolution says that the National Assembly of St. Christopher and Nevis endorses Republic of China and Taiwan's bids to participate in a professional, pragmatic, and constructive manner in international and regional mechanisms and organizations such as the United Nations, the World Health Organization, WHO, United Nations Convention on Climate Change, the Criminal Police International Organization, Interpol, and the International Civil Aviation Organization. The resolution was adopted in the National Assembly with the full support of members of Parliament on both sides. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Republic of China Taiwan will be observing the 40th anniversary of the establishment of a strong and mutually beneficial bilateral cooperation this year. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Over in the Bahamas, police there question former Prime Minister Minnis. ZNS News has more.
Deputy Commissioner of Police Leemond Delaveau confirming to ZNS News that former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis was questioned by police earlier this year as part of an ongoing investigation into his administration's COVID-19 food assistance program. Delaveau said Dr. Minnis, who is not a suspect in the matter, was interviewed as a witness, providing police with valuable information. Now, back in May, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis indicated in the House of Assembly that some $10 million earmarked for the Food Distribution Task Force had simply vanished. To fast forward to debate on the mid-year budget in February, he revealed an NGO that had been involved in the program returned $100,000 in cash and equipment valued at some $300,000 to the government. Meantime, Deputy Commissioner Delaveau says investigations into the food assistance program continue.
Antigua and Barbuda's Foreign Affairs Minister E.P. Chet Green has reaffirmed the government's plan to push for travel and tourism opportunities between the Caribbean and Africa. The minister says he is both hurt and angry at recent reactions to the West African migrant issue. ABS's Ursel Charles Jr. reports.
Establishing linkages between the Caribbean region and the African continent is part of an overall plan That's according to Foreign Affairs Minister, the Honourable E.P. Chet Green. He says the overarching plan, though, is much larger than just this country.
We were trying and still have a vision of developing tourism, a vibrant trade, travel trade included, between Africa and the Caribbean. Antigua is only one stop in that Caribbean destination.
Local spotlight on last Tuesday's migrant boat tragedy has renewed focus on migratory patterns, but the minister says migration is but a normal global phenomenon.
The discussion globally now is that people are going to migrate for different reasons, other than economy. You might put it back down to economy in the end, or economics in the end, because things like climate change will force persons to move, albeit temporarily. So when you have persons who depend on farming, for example, and climate change affects them so adversely that they can't eke out a living for themselves and their families, they are going to move.
Green says the politicizing of the issue by many has been disappointing.
Unfortunately, like so many things in the country, it became politicized. It bothers me, it angers me, it hurts me, it troubles me. Because I see Africans as not just people, but as special people. We are quintessentially, predominantly of African stock. And so how can you tell me that we embrace every other race and culture, but when ours arrive, it's a problem?
The minister made the comments on the Beneath the Surface radio program on his With the People FM radio station on Tuesday. For ABS News, I am Ursula Charles Jr.
And back to Port of Spain, where economist Professor Roger Hussain describes as reasonable the finance minister's response to the latest IMF report on Trinidad and Tobago. But he notes with concern what he says is a downgrade by the IMF in terms of economic performance. In this regard, the professor is suggesting steps that should be taken. Alicia Boucher of TV6 News has some details.
Professor Roger Hussain expects the final report of the IMF on TNT to be generated by next week. He says the economy is recovering, and that was highlighted in the report, as well as the need to make the exchange rate more flexible. But the economist tells us there was a downgrade as it pertains to growth performance of the economy.
Downgraded in the sense, lest people misunderstand what I said, is that they posted consistently lower values, so that if you look at the 2016 value and the 2022 values, they are much lower than we saw before. In fact, the IMF put economic activity at the end of 2023 at about 4.5% lower than they would have put it last year.
As such, he says the economy is not doing well, as some may have thought.
To me, that's a serious thing. It means that if we thought we were here at the bottom of the barrel, we are not here. We are a bit lower than we thought. And that means we need much more work to get the economy moving forward.
According to Professor Hussain, the IMF report also signaled that TNT is not externally competitive when compared to the year prior. He also knows that the report did not factor in an important element, the crime scourge in the country. He says that acts as a serious impediment to investigations and impacts heavily on the mental well-being of citizens. He says the presence of migrant workers can create the benefits of a devaluation without actually altering the currency value.
The areas that it is in right now is not good for the Trinidad and Tobago economy. You are seeing the output of bars increase, of casinos increase, of those places that use beautiful women increase, because they are beautiful. Now, what you are not seeing increasing as we would like is our production of agricultural goods and our production of manufactured goods. And my view is that if you use this increase in labor in a targeted way, you can increase the output of the goods that you sell abroad.
Professor Hussain also believes that it's important to lower the country's expenditure as it pertains to NIS and the plan to increase the retirement age from 60 to 65.
So I agree with the IMF recommendations, and I support the point of view of the Minister of Finance and the IMF that the NIS contribution should increase. I also strongly support that the retirement age should be increased. In fact, I don't think we have a choice, because the labor force participation rate is going down and down and down and down.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
Hubbards is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.